Good evening and welcome. I would like to call the Tuesday, July 20th, 2021 regular board meeting for Colleton County School District to order. Welcome to all staff present, as well as those that are watching via YouTube. At this time, I'll ask that everyone please stand for the pledge, followed by the invocation by Reverend Jenkins. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Most gracious Father, we thank you now for another opportunity to come before you at a Colleton County School District Board meeting. Dear God, we're asking for a blessing tonight as we continue to maneuver through the business of the school district. Continue, dear God, to bless us, keep us in the right perspective. Then, dear God, on this virus that is still prevalent, dear God, we ask that as this Delta variant goes forward, dear God, that you will protect our children, protect our staff, protect all of us in a mighty way, because we realize that as we come together, it is for the betterment of our children. Continue to bless us and give us the wisdom that it needs in order to safely open up and continue to maneuver through the school year. We ask these blessings that you will bless the administration, the school, the district, and especially our children. We ask it in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Before we begin, Mr. Charles Murdoch is walking up. He'll be with us in just a moment. I'd entertain a motion that we approve the regular board meeting minutes for June the 28th and the special board meeting minutes from July the 7th.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the regular board meeting for June 28th, 2021, and the special board meeting on July 7th, 2021.
Second.
The special board meeting, is that supposed to be July the 6th?
July 6th, okay.
So amend that to the special board meeting on the 6th. Okay. Is there, motion has been made and second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Next, we'll have professional development update from Mr. Bowman. Did you want to pass that off and delay that to the August board meeting?
I don't have a report for the board, Madam Chair.
Okay, so let the record reflect that Mr. Bowman does not have an update for the board. You're not going to share the professional development you attended in June with the board?
I'm sorry?
You're not going to share with the board the professional development you attended in June?
What's listed here on the agenda, Madam Chair, I don't have a report for what's listed here on the agenda. Thank you.
Just the update from your professional development? No? Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And then next we'll have Dr. Cave on live streaming of regular, special, and policy board meetings.
Thank you, Chairman Whitkin. The recommendation is to continue to record the live stream at regular board meetings, as well as we also recommend that we record and upload the specially called board meetings and committee meetings. We'd also like to make a decision about, on a case-by-case basis, for our special board meetings as well, to be live streamed. We feel as though this is in the best interest of our employees to be here consistently every time we have a meeting, making sure that we're taking care of their safety, their health, and their welfare. So we'd like to make a recommendation to the board to consider making some adjustments, if at all possible.
Thank you, Dr. Cave. Is there a motion that we accept the recommendations of administration for the live streaming of regular board meetings, special board meetings as on a case-by-case basis, and then policy board meetings will be uploaded the day after
Yes,
their meetings?
Correct. Thank you.
Before we make that or think about making that motion, wouldn't this require a policy amendment? Because we have policy that regulates our board meeting and how they're presented to the public. I don't see a problem with us.
You can incorporate that into your board meeting policy if you wanted to.
Madam Chair, I just think the policy committee should incorporate that language in that policy.
Okay.
So, because I think all of us, and I rarely speak for the board, but I think all of us agree that that's a good thing. There are some good things, I guess we should say, that came out of COVID. That's one thing that we learned that was very productive and useful for our community. So I think I'm safe in thinking that all of our board members feel like that should be a part of our policy.
Okay, and so those we'll pass that off to the policy committee.
Yeah.
And to review. But for public information, moving forward, we will update all on when live meetings will be live streamed, so that you know when you can take part remotely. However, know that all of our meetings are now open to the public, so encourage those to attend that can.
Right.
We'll make sure that our communications officer makes sure that he addresses that publicly. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Dr. Cave. Next, we'll have the legislative report by Ms. Patricia Simmons, which I would like to note she is now the Region 1 Director for the South Carolina School Board Association, representing our county and our district, Beaufort, Dorchester 2, Dorchester 4.
2 and 4, and Jasper.
And Jasper County. So we're very pleased to have her in that role. Congratulations, Ms. Simmons. You're welcome.
Just want to give a brief update for our school law conference that is coming up August 28th and 29th. It will be at the Marriott in Charleston. The deadline for registration is the 12th of August. But if there is any cancellation, you would have to cancel it by the 29th of July. So there is limited spaces due to the CDC guideline, because we're still following. There is 3 board members per district that can attend. Does not include me because I am registered through SCSBA, so it's 3 excluding myself. So if you all are interested in going ahead and attend, the sooner the better before it fills up, because at some point they're going to start cutting off. And the updated event that is coming up is Beyond the Basic Workshop. It's going to be October 7th, and it's going to be Columbia Training Center. But, you know, if we sit back, a lot of those may change as Delta variants come up. So we just hope for the best with that. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. And any board member that would like to attend the school law conference, if you'll please get with Ms. Sherrill by the end of the week, so she can get you registered.
Yeah, I just gave Ms. Sherrills my information to attend.
I'm sorry, what was that, Reverend Jenkins?
I just gave Ms. Sherrill my information of
Oh,
to
good.
attend.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you. We'll move on to student and staff recognition. Mr. Harry Jenkins.
At this time, we'd like to call Mr. Cliff Warren.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Members of the audience, it's always a privilege to come before you to be able to recognize one of our own for a job well done. And we were recently notified and made aware that one of our school resource officers received an award, and we wanted to bring that to you tonight. I don't think he's able to make it. From what I understand, he's attending a training this week, so he's out of town and not able to be here. But Dr. Cave wanted to go forward and make sure that we recognized him publicly. And if you see him or see him around, let him know how proud we are of him. Deputy Crawford is an SRO at Cottageville Elementary School. He was recognized as the South Carolina and Low Country School Resource Officer of the Year. He was recently given that award at their convention last week. And it says in their organization that he was recognized for his significant contributions to Colleton's School Resource Officer Division and his hard work and dedication to maintaining a safe and nurturing environment within our schools and community. Sheriff Buddy Hill made a statement that his determination and dedication in being a positive role model to Colleton students play a crucial role within our community and the law enforcement profession. So tonight we recognize Ray Crawford, Collegeville Elementary School School Resource Officer, South Carolina School Resource Officer of the Year, and Low Country School Resource Officer of the Year. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Congratulations to Officer Crawford. We also, this time we'd like to recognize Dr. Valerie Cave.
Good evening. At this time, I'd like to recognize our school board members. The board and the leadership team receives training, priority training, by the South Carolina School Boards Association. The School Board Association, established in 1982, the School Board's Boardmanship Institute, which offers training on a year basis in terms of getting curriculum-focused training on leadership development, both on the state as well as on the national level. We are very pleased tonight to be able to recognize those individuals who have reached one level of the 6 levels during one course of the year during the Boardmanship Institute. Congratulations to the following board member who has received this honor, and that board member is our chairman, Sharon Whitkin, who has received level 2 training and boardmanship at the Institute. Would you please come down? So this says a certificate of achievement presented to Sharon Whitkin for reaching level 2 in the Boardmanship Institute training program as a school district trustee in Colleton County School District. Thank you. I also have in my packet of information all of the other levels of training for all of the other board members. I will be happy to provide all of that to you at this time. So if each of you could come down and get yours as well, I want to make sure that I provide that training to you all of your certificate as well. Board member Patricia Simmons. Board member Charles Murdoch, I won't make you come, I'll bring it to you. How's that? Board member Tim Mabry. Board member Mary Jones. Board member Harry Jenkins. And then board member William Bowman. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cave. At this time, we have no public input. Moving on to policy items, Mr. Charles Murdoch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we're going, let me see, policy 5. we're gonna ask, I think this the one that, Mr., wait a minute, let's revise.
So we just need to,
Huh? This the one,
one reading for this one.
yeah, this the first reading, this the one that's the one we gonna look at. Are you done?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This
Okay.
is the mask.
Okay, at this time, we're gonna need a motion to have the first reading on policy BG/BGD in reference to item 502, temp, policy, ADD.
Do you want Mr. Duffy to go over that?
At this time, Mr. Duffy,
Right, so the second item you have is policy, consideration on temporary policy ADD. In order to adopt a temporary policy with one reading, you have to first suspend the board rule that requires two readings. And 5.01 is for y'all to make a motion to temporarily suspend the need for two readings for adopting the policy, so that you can consider adopting policy ADD on one reading tonight.
at this time, Madam Chair, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend policy BGD, first reading.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you.
Now,
Now, Mr. Duffy
Okay.
will give the explanation of ADD.
Mr. Duffy, you gonna give that?
Yeah, yes, before you is a revision to policy ADD regarding face coverings. Over the last, I guess, couple of meetings, we've had some discussions about the need to amend this policy in light of the legislation from the state level that required us to remove face covering requirements. This policy is basically taken from the policy that initially incorporated the face covering requirement for protection from COVID. What I've done is changed it from a requirement in the policy to a voluntary use of a protective face covering. The reason we need to adopt this policy, there's a couple reasons actually. The first is in our student dress code, we do not allow students to wear face coverings or masks. So this policy temporarily suspends that dress code policy if a student is wearing a protective face covering related to COVID. The policy also does allow staff, students, and visitors to voluntarily wear protective face coverings related to COVID by policy. So, in other words, it doesn't require a mandate, but it does allow for the individuals to voluntarily wear the face coverings. On the second page, we talk about students being permitted to wear. Now, we also keep the exemption. There may be certain classes or activities that staff feel like a face covering cannot be worn for whatever reason. That would be a case-by-case basis at that point. I'm not sure we've come across any of those yet. So as it relates to visitors, visitors can wear a protective face covering on campuses and on school property. The policy states that they could be required to temporarily remove the face covering for identification purposes, so you know who you're talking with, and as we all know, sometimes that's pretty tough with the face coverings on. And if the person does not comply with that temporarily for identification purposes, they can be asked to leave, of course. The third page retains the policy against harassment and bullying related to the face coverings. However, it's amended to read that students should not, student staff members and visitors should not engage in that type of activity against someone for choosing to wear a face covering and also for choosing not to wear a face covering. So it incorporates it both ways and addresses that. The next paragraph deals with the disciplinary how we would handle that from a disciplinary standpoint. This policy is being presented as a temporary policy for two reasons. One, the COVID pandemic obviously is still going on, so we may need to adjust. And for two, our state legislature will be in and out the rest of the fall dealing with redistricting, and they could take up any type of action related to this, and frankly, we need to be able to act on the fly at this point because they're sending us memorandums and making laws and expecting us to comply by the next day at this point, it appears. So it's very difficult for us to do. We're trying to do our best. We only meet once a month. So we need to do it as a temporary policy that we can change on one reading rather than two.
Won't take action on that. At this time,
Mr. Murdoch, before we go to the motion, just to expedite time, I just have one thing I want to ask Mr. Duffy, if that's okay. I just saw in the news yesterday, Bert, that the organization of physicians, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Academy of Pediatrics.
Academy of Pediatrics, right?
Yeah. Now I know they're not a legislative body,
No, sir.
but they do have influence on a legislative body.
Yes, sir. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah. It's true. And I think you know where I'm going with this question. If for some reason the CDC were to create guidelines as, I think I heard Reverend Jenkins say in his prayer earlier tonight, or his invocation earlier tonight, relative to the Delta variant and so forth and so on.
Yes, sir.
Just to be clear with the public and me as a board member, how does that play in regard to not only this policy, but the leverage or leeway that we have with the public?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to mention the CDC on July 9th updated its guidance on related to COVID in schools, and the CDC guidance related to COVID and students in schools is that all students who are under 12, of course, who cannot get vaccinated, and all students who are of vaccination age but who are not vaccinated should wear masks in school. That's their guidance, okay? So having said that, and I read the same article, the same thing you read about the Academy of Pediatrics. If we don't comply with what the state law is, we risk losing our state funding, period. So I don't know whether the state will change the law or update, or whether if numbers start going up or changing, whether the governor or the General Assembly or whoever, the State Department, will change. At this point, we're day to day.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring that up is because oddly enough, in the beginning of all this, I know my colleagues remember one of our situations where parents did not want to send their children to school if masks were going to be enforced. And we also had some parents that were concerned about sending their children to school now if masks are not going to be able to be enforced.
Yes, sir.
You know, so that gives you all an idea of the range of emotions and personal feelings that a body like ours has to deal with in regards to drafting policy to govern our school district. So that's why I asked you to clarify that for the public, because I know the public is watching and everybody here, of course, obviously is listening.
Right.
If that were to happen, I know we have some parents, I don't know about the rest of my colleagues, but I had some parents contact me that had concerns about that law and how it was going to be applied to our day-to-day operations in school. And to speak specifically, I'm talking about us not being able to mandate masks or even suggest masks. Some parents are uncomfortable with sending their children to school.
Yes, sir, and I did want to mention too that this policy, the State Department of Education has given their opinion that the state law prohibiting the policies requiring masks at school facilities also prohibits the requiring of them on buses. So this policy will also comply with the State Department of Education's guidance and opinion in relation to that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Thank you, Mr. Murdock.
So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we accept this will be this first reading for policy ADF. No, I'm sorry, that's not the right one. ADD, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. ADD, voluntary use of protection of face covering.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the revisions to policy ADD. Is there any discussion? Just want to say thank you to all those that are involved in policymaking. Yes, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to be able to reiterate to the public that we will continue to practice those mitigating strategies within our schools, all of them. Highly recommended. We'll still be doing the sanitization. We'll also still be doing all of the spraying in the buildings. I will present much of this during my superintendent's update. So whether or not the children wear a mask, it's a personal preference mandated by our state government at this point. But I wanted to assure the public that we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that our children are safe and making sure that they're getting a proper education, face-to-face, in person, and very engaging, and because it's safe to do so at this time.
Dr. Cave?
I got one question. If a teacher wants to wear a mask, is that a problem?
No, sir. If a teacher wants to wear a mask, that's not a problem. It's a personal preference for teachers as well as students, on the bus or not on the bus.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just want to say that the policy does address students, staff, and visitors.
Yes.
In this policy that and I just was, I'm sorry to I interrupted you, Dr. K, but I just wanted to say thank you to all those, because this is definitely a constant changing. As Mr. Bowman just brought up, that yesterday there was something new, that the policy committee and Mr. Duffy and Dr. Cave are constantly in contact, as well as everybody in operations, trying to figure out what we need to do to stay compliant in every way, shape, or form. So this is temporary. We'll start here and see where it takes us, but we'll certainly be sending out communication clearly so that everyone is made aware. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you.
It's on the agenda.
Okay, got it. Yep. So you do this one next.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. At this time, I ask Mr. Duffy to review the ADF, District Wellness Policy.
Okay, it's actually, if we can, there's three of them that go together, Mr. Murdock. It's a policy ADF, which is school wellness, policy EFE, which is competitive food sales and vending machines, and policy AREFER, which is the regulation to competitive food sales. These policies were presented to the policy committee by Ms. Fitch a while back as part of her triennial review of district policies and procedures related to the food service aspect of it that she's required to do. We have worked on basically that most of our policy was actually up to date. The changes that we have are very few to the policies themselves, and are mostly structure and more inclusion of already existing guidelines that we comply with. So we felt like it was appropriate to update. At the policy committee meeting, there were a number of appendices that were being proposed. I went through the appendices. a good bit of the language in the appendices was already in our policies, but language that was not in our policies that were in the appendices, I incorporated into the policy, so we didn't have, Appendix A, B, C, and D, and so forth. It is a little bit cleaner. So the changes, I submitted those to y'all. Like I said, they deal with complying with the Smart Snack Nutrition Guideline standards and just getting up to date with what the current regulations are, most of which, like I said, we were already doing from that standpoint. So we're recommending that y'all give first reading to these 3 policies tonight so that we can comply with the requirement to review the policies every 3 years.
That EFE, competitive food sales, that's included within the...
Yes, sir. They're out of order a little bit on the agenda, but if you would take ADF, AR, EF, ER, and EFE, they're all together actually.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion then that we approve for first reading policy ADF, school wellness, policy AR, EFE, competitive food sales vending machine, and policy EFE, competitive food sales and vending machine.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded on the revised policies, ADF, AR, and EFE. Is there any discussion?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. I don't know if Mr. Murdoch or Mr. Duffy, or I don't see our Director of Nutrition here that could address any concerns that I might have, or you want me to just write them down and give them to the policy committee?
That would be good. She, Ms. Fitch has reviewed the drafts that I completed last week, and last week she submitted to me her proposed changes, which I incorporated into the latest drafts that y'all received. But if you have any additional questions or anything, we can address those at a later time with you.
Sir,
Of course, we're in first reading, so.
Right, yeah, I'll reserve that, and I'll either give them to Mr. Murdoch or Mr. Duffy, however Mr. Murdoch want me to handle that.
Yes, you can give them to me, and we'll discuss them in the
Yes, sir.
policy.
Yes, sir, I'll do that. Thank you.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you.
And I will say that most of our students want us to get rid of this policy. They hate this policy. They want to go back to the hamburgers and French fries and stuff like that.
All right, Madam Chair, I'd like to go to policy BID, board members, compensation and expense. At this time, we're going to place this policy back to the policy council so they can review it and discuss it, and then we'll bring it back to the board at the next board meeting.
That sounds good. Thank you.
We need a motion to table it.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we table 5.05 revised policy BID until next meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to revisit policy BID after policy committee's review. All those in favor, any other discussion?
Yeah, I just got one question, Mr. Murdoch. Could you please, sir, tell us why you want this tabled? The new language, I think, has everything in it that you, as chair of the policy committee, wanted in it.
Well, we want to look at it and make sure that, because we when it was written, the policy committee as a whole hadn't reviewed it, so we'll review it and then we'll bring it back to the board after that review.
Okay, so as is written here, the policy committee has not seen it? That's what you're telling us?
They have not, Mr. Bowman. I completed that draft sometime last week, I think, and submitted it to Mr. Murdoch, and the policy committee needs to look at it first. So that request was being made by me to go back to the policy committee. It was already on the agenda, but it needs to go back to them because they haven't seen it.
If the policy committee hadn't seen it, then I agree 100% that it needs to be tabled. Thank you, sir.
There any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries.
Okay, we have policy CCA, organization chart. Dr. Cave, you want to talk about that?
Yes, sir. We've been operating on an old version of our organizational chart. So I'm proposing that we make a revision to that policy, CCA. And I have provided for you the update. I'll go over what the update entails. Currently, the changes would be the coordinator of public information, the assistant superintendent of human resources and operations, the chief financial officer, as well as the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, the director of athletics, and the coordinator of safe schools all report to the superintendent, as well as the school principals and the director of the Thunderbolt Career and Technology Center report to the superintendent office. And then, as you can see on the update, we also have, under curriculum and instruction, we have the director of secondary ed, the director of adult ed, we have the director of special services, the director of elementary student services, federal programs, and the coordinator of accountability and assessment. And then under the assistant superintendent of human resources and operations, you have school nutrition, student nutrition, director of building and grounds, director of technology, and director of transportation. That's updating it from the 2015 version to what I'm recommending that we do now until we move forward with reorganization.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the organization chart, first reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to adopt the revised policy CCA. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries.
Thank you.
At this time, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Murdock. Do we have a date scheduled for the next policy committee meeting?
At this time, we'll
announce that at a later time.
yeah, we
Okay.
can.
Just want to make sure that we are, communicate that as soon as we can, as there's so many policies that need to be revisited, and it certainly needs to be done before the next board meeting.
Yeah, I'll talk with Dr. Cave and we'll
That's
get
normally we
together
do
on a
have the
date
meeting
and I'll
before.
call the committee members and let them know. And if it don't suit them, we'll get together with one that will.
Yes, sir.
Policy committee is on it.
Terrific. All right. Thank you. At this time, I'll call on for the superintendent's report, Ms. Mary Jones.
Superintendent's organizational update.
Good evening again. I'd like to present to you the superintendent's operational update. It has been a wonderful 21 days. Today makes it 21 days. So when I came on board, I provided commitment. I still stand on that commitment. If you can draw your attention to the screens, my operational update is there. I don't have a clicker, so it will have to be moved. You'll move along for me. Thank you. So my commitment to the board and the community as the superintendent of Colleton County Schools is to lead publicly as well as transparently. It's to build trust and to have positive relationships with all the board members as well as staff and community members. It's to enthusiastically build on the strengths of our community as well as our schools. It's also to drive and support our innovation that we have here and to extend upon it. It is to intensely focus on the growth and the achievement of all of our students, as well as to build broad coalitions and support for our district so that we become a district of distinction. and then welcome and engage our community and invest myself in the community, and then actively engage all of our stakeholders with varied perspectives, as well as to engage those that are not traditionally always engaged, and always to encourage divergent thinking. So how have I done that in my first 21 days? First of all, I'm a people person, and I really love the children. So I started out, Sean and I, on our journey, and we went out to visit the summer programming, and I am so very much impressed. So you can see a collage here from my visit to Blackstreet Early Childhood Center, as well as Forest Hills Elementary School. You'll see my visitation often because I'm not an in-the-office superintendent, I'm an out-and-about one. So what have I done in my first 21 days? I've conducted meet and greets with the new superintendent, with all of the central office employees. I've conducted one-to-one focus meetings with the central office employees to discuss their roles and responsibilities, their areas of supervision, and talked about their 30, 60, and 90 days. I've called on various community leaders and business partners to introduce myself, as well as to build on relationships. I've even walked into grocery stores and introduced myself as I've been purchasing items. They've looked at me in a different kind of way, but I'm out and about there. I've emailed a letter of introduction to all of the staff and families. I've established an executive cabinet to bring about operational effectiveness to the central office support. I've conducted summer program site visits, of course, to Blackstreet Early Childhood Center in Forest Hills to engage the staff and students. I've conducted walkthroughs with the help of Mr. Blakeney to Hendersonville, Bells, Northside, and Colleton Middle. And then tomorrow, we're going to engage, on Thursday, we're going to engage with Arts Now, International Literacy Grant application. We're so excited to be able to apply for that grant for Northside, Cottageville, and Forest Hills Elementary. We're really excited to bring that here. And then just today, we worked with Ed Farm to think about bringing apple coating partnership to Blackstreet Elementary. So I'm continuing to build coalitions to make sure that this district becomes a district of distinction. So I've met with our 240-day school leaders to discuss their celebrations, their challenges, their staffing plans for the upcoming school year. Didn't stop there, so I met with the SEMA emergency preparedness because we had to do an emergency school closing, and then held my cabinet retreat to address our school reopening. I've interviewed central office positions and hired for those positions, planned a communication launch to Return to Learn. So in a few days, you're going to see signs come all over the district, and we're going to hang one across the middle of town. So you're going to see things begin to change because the children need to come back to school. We're ready for them to come back. And then I've met with media to emphasize a new marketing strategy for Colleton County schools. And then, of course, I've had a conference call with Molly Spearman, our Superintendent Spearman, to discuss the state of this district. And then I've met with Dean Nesmith at the University of South Carolina, Salkehatchie campus, to talk about the expansion that we're going to bring to Colleton High with the Early College Academy, the BSN, the Bachelor in Nursing program, and expand the engineering, as well as offer an elementary ed pathway and an early childhood pathway, because our children in Colleton County deserve the very best that life has to offer. And then I'm going to offer some points to consider as we move forward. So as we move into the opening of school, I'd like to begin for you to think about a Superintendent Student of the Month that will begin in September, where I will recognize students that have done outstanding accomplishments and bring them before the board so that we can begin to make them feel as though they're the best thing that Colleton has to offer. And then I'd like for us to begin to look at a salary study. So I have some recommendations for that. It's important that we look at how we pay our employees. It's important that we look at how we staff our schools. So I recommend to the board that we seek assistance from an external provider to conduct a salary study, to address and monitor effective use of our human capital, our budget allocations, equity, and our position control. Then I'd like to recommend that we review our attendance policy for employees to address employee absenteeism. As you well know, when we discussed at our last board meeting, we have quite a bit that we have been spending on Kelly services, so we need to be able to address our employee absenteeism. And then I'd like for us to expand our vaccination clinics to our students as well as our staff. We already work with DHEC, we already work with CVS, but we have been afforded an opportunity with Dr. Gail Reardon, a local doctor, who has offered her services to offer as many vaccination clinics as possible. And then I'd like to offer our workplace expectations and protocols review for you this evening. I think that you received that by email with a draft, and I'd like to be able to go over that with you just briefly this evening as well. Next slide. So in our workplace expectations and protocols, executive cabinet, I just really have to commend them a moment. They are an outstanding group. They have worked hard and diligently with me. They've spent some long hours with me, and they're getting used to the idea that we have to really, really get the work done, and they're a great group to work with. So we've put together workplace expectations and protocols. It's in a draft review right now, but it highlights everything that we could possibly think of that our staff and our employees, they need to know for us to return to learn in a safe mode. We've provided symptom monitoring requirements, our COVID-19 leave, guidelines on social distancing, as well as face coverings, hand washing, our clean workspace, how we're going to sanitize that, our entry to our district facilities and all our requirements, our visitor expectations, how we're going to use the restrooms, how we're going to prepare meals and how we're going to provide those meals to our children and staff, how we're going to utilize our water fountains, our hand sanitizer, and how we're going to use our sanitizing wipes, as well as our desk shields that we'll be providing to our students as well as our teachers, how we're going to take care of our recess protocols as well as our equipment, and then our general sanitation that we will do on a nightly basis, as well as our staff, dress expectations, and then addressing our staff attendance. So we've really spent some time looking at all of those protocols. They're in draft form. Tomorrow we will work with our principals, our extended cabinet first in the morning. That's all of our district leadership. And then tomorrow afternoon we will work with our principals. They'll come in and they'll get the opportunity to review the protocols, and then we'll put it in final print so that we can have it published. That is my report for this evening, and do I have any questions at this time?
Dr. Cave, the expectations, the draft that you have provided, I know you're going to gain some staff input on that, and then does it then go to the policy committee, or do you present it back to us in August for approval since there are some revisions?
Well, this, from my understanding, does not have to go to the policy. This is more governance, so it does not have to go to policy for review. It's my operational effectiveness on how we run schools on governance.
Get board approval in August?
It will. I'm not sure if it has to have board approval because it's operational effectiveness. So that.
I'm sorry,
Well, I was at, Mr. Duffy says no.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've never, in my tenure, I've never seen the superintendent I think these are just guidelines.
Yes, sir.
That the superintendent office is putting together really to, from what I'm reading here, do two things: make our staff comfortable and also make our community comfortable. Because like I said earlier, there's a huge concern that is brewing up because of our inability to, promote masks. So I think she's putting together her guidelines, if you will, and I think most of this is probably in the
Handbooks.
not handbooks, but
Our
the
return to
COVID,
learn.
right? The
Yes.
COVID
Protocol.
protocol, all of the cleaning and all of that stuff.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It just said policy, that's why I asked. So thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Any other questions?
The information originally presented earlier on the desire to move forward with the external review of full-time staff, will you present something to the board on the next step for that, or, okay?
I will. We're looking for an external provider. So when we have the information for an external provider, I have put that in the Office of Finance. So they're looking for a provider, and as soon as we have that information, we'll come formally to the board with our recommendation.
Thank you,
Yes.
Dr. Cave.
I do have one more question, Dr. Cave, in regards to your points to consider. The first point, Superintendent Student of the Month to begin in September.
Yes, sir.
Have you created any kind of like guidelines for how you're going to, I don't know if you want to tell us those guidelines now or
Yes, sir, I have created those guidelines. My preference is to share those with the principals first, so that I can get their feedback, and then I'll bring that to the board so that you can see what my guidelines are going to be, if that's allowable.
Yeah, because if it was based on grades, I would have never won that award.
Well, it's not based on grades. Okay.
I was also impressed, Dr. Cave, as I was reading yesterday under the staff dress expectations,
Yes, sir.
that the staff needs to be role models for the children. Oh, I love that.
Most definitely. Children learn by doing, and they learn by seeing.
I
So,
agree.
yes, sir. So we're gonna go out full force.
Dr. Cave, I also noticed that you mentioned in here Ed Farm Apple Coding Partnership. Little brief expansion on that, or is that something in the works or something that's being discussed to be presented?
It is being discussed, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. It is a partnership with Ed Farm, which is a nationally recognized company that provides coding, PBL, robotics. They do lots of various types of professional development and partnerships with Apple across the country. I have the opportunity to be able to bring them in to provide some opportunities for our children. They provide an institute for our teachers, where our teachers become teacher fellows, as well as they have a partnership with Apple, where our children have the opportunity to receive iPads. Now, not every child will receive an iPad, but we're looking at doing it at the Early Learning Center. I had the opportunity to visit Tacoma, Washington, and I saw the little children, the land of the little people, my former superintendent used to call it. The little children turn themselves into coders, and they did web design, and it was just an awesome opportunity to see children that small be able to take a digital device and be able to create something of their very own. And I want that for the children here in Colleton County. I think that that they can do it. I know that we're a Google Chrome district, but we can do both. Two things can live in the same place. So the children will receive an iPad. The teachers will receive a MacBook as well as an iPad. We'll have lots of professional development. And our plan is for the Early Learning Center, or the Early Childhood Center, to become an Apple School of Distinction. It would be the first one in the country.
We'll be getting a little more information on this as
You
we
will
move.
be. We're still formulating all the plans. We met with the principal, Tiffany Pearson, today, as well as our assistant superintendent, Jessica, sorry. I know who you are, I promise. Jessica Williams, and then we also met with our director of technology, Ms. Frank, as well as today. So everybody's a little nervous, but with me behind them, we're going to make it happen. Yes, sir. You will hear more about it. The principal's really excited.
Okay.
And I'm sure I'm sure by now the teachers are really nervous because they're out there hearing about it.
Go ahead, Charles.
Dr. Cave, you mentioned about the salary study. You intend to bring that before the board before it's finalized? The reason why I asked,
Excuse me.
The reason why I asked, it's been brought up before, and you know we was sort of in financial pinch, and we wanted to make sure that it's something that we can do, and I know that you wouldn't bring it if you didn't think we needed it.
Yes, sir. I wouldn't bring it if we didn't need it,
Okay.
but we really need it.
Okay.
We're going to find an external provider that can do it at a reasonable cost.
Okay.
And if we can't afford it, we'll look at Plan B.
Okay, but I just wanted to ask that question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one more thing. Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Cave, your third points to consider, recommend that we review our attendance policy for employees to address employee absenteeism.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make a statement about that really to my colleagues and really to kind of the real need for us to address employee absenteeism. I think Cliff has a clear conscience of how this affects our school district in regards to how much we pay Kelly Services for their services. I clearly remember, and I'm sure Ms. Jones can remember, when we first initiated, and I don't know if Charles, you were on the board, Charles was on the board also. I remember when we first implemented Kelly Services, you know, there was a huge debate about whether we could do it or not and how much it costs us and so forth and so on. And to surprise the public, I hope, we started out paying Kelly Services $500,000 a year for their services. Was it 5 or 400? 5 or 400? It was 500?
500,000.
And this past year, we paid them almost $900,000.
8,000.
Yeah, 880, 850,000. That number comes to about $40,000 a month that we paid Kelly Services for their services. And that's directly correlated with employee absenteeism.
And academic performance.
Correct. So now, I don't know if you have this information for us tonight, Dr. Cave, but I remember again when we first, and I know Charles and Mary can remember, when we first started with Kelly Services, they guaranteed us a fill rate of like 98% or something like that. Do you know what their fill rate was for us last year?
I don't have that information. Mr.
I can tell you it went close to 90%. COVID was a big part of that. Now, in years past, they've been up in the 90% pretty much every year. But last year,
In the past years before COVID, were they close to 98%? Because I think they guaranteed us 98.
I don't believe we've ever been up to 98%. It was in the 90s.
Yeah, see, so that's a huge factor, board members, in regards to how we should really consider this policy to address absenteeism for employees. I don't know how we're gonna do that legally, Mr. Attorney, but I guess we'll figure, hopefully we'll figure out a way we can address it, because it's definitely needed to be addressed. I mean, what could we do with $480,000?
We could pay
What-
our,
What can we do with 400?
we
could
could
do
create
a
the
lot.
step that we
Yes.
missed from classified staff.
We could do that. We could give classified staff a step.
We trust that the process will begin. Thank you
Right.
for that additional information.
On that note, we will be reviewing the data with the principals at their administrative retreat next week. A report is being compiled so that we can see the absenteeism per school. So the principals will be going in detail over that information.
You're welcome. Oh, sure, you're good. Thank you. Any other question for Dr. Cave?
My question will come later because I'm waiting on some information, so we'll be in touch.
All righty then. Thank you so very much. I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Dr. Cave.
Thank you.
We'll move on to operations. Mr. William Bowman.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. That surprised me. I didn't realize we got to meet so quick. How you doing? Good. Good.
Come
Thank
on
you,
up.
sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Good evening again, board members. You have my report for operation before you. Also, we have it up on the PowerPoint throughout the room for you to look at as well. As I shared last month, very busy as always in operations. You know, we're winding down summer school, and we're getting ready for ramping up for the start of a school year. And I will say that in my visits to the school, very impressed with our custodial staffs who are, Darryl, I'll have to tell you when we go forward, so I'll let you know. You can go ahead. Impressed with the crews working around summer school, because we've had to add more areas, more schools with summer schools. So getting our schools ready for the start of school, they're having to adjust a little bit and do things differently to get ready to work around those summer school activities. So very impressed with what they're getting done, and I know Mr. Blakeney will work with them to make sure that we're prepared and ready for the opening of school and making sure that things look good for our students when we return. In operations, just a few highlights that we'll go through. Of course, with buildings and grounds, Mr. Blakeney, after I do my human resources, since I have it all combined, he'll come up and give a capital projects update to you at the conclusion. So we'll let him come up and take care of that for you. In technology, I wanted to share with you that the state is going to be cutting off the payment that we were receiving for those families that were able to get service through Palmetto Rule. They've been given some options that they can do if they want to extend that, but the state will not be providing any funds to do that forthcoming. Of course, we won't have virtual school, only for those who have been accepted into our virtual through the consortium. And a part of their agreement is, if they get accepted, is they have to have internet service. So they should not be needing those services. So those families will not continue to be paid for. If they want to continue, they'll have to find an avenue to be able to get that. And so we're sending out a letter we received from PRTC and Technology who those families are, and we're going to send out a letter to them just letting them know options that they have available to them, and that when that date will be cut off for receiving payment from the state on that. I also wanted to share that, and we were taking up all of the Chromebooks at the end of the year, getting them prepared to send off because we were purchasing new Chromebooks. We had over 420 of our student Chromebooks that were not returned. And so a discussion, concern is when we issue out new Chromebooks coming up next year, if those students have not returned them, Dr. Cave and I spoke, those students will not get another Chromebook until they've either returned it or given us a reason why that could not be returned. So we wanted to share. That's a concern of ours, that we still have that many Chromebooks that are still outstanding. And then we also had 25 hotspots that were also issued that were supposed to be returned with the Chromebooks that were not returned as well. So we're working on trying to get those back to us as well. So just wanted to give you an update on that. And I think it's impressive that we want to share that in technology, they almost did a little close to 4,200 work orders, or over 4,200 work orders during 2021 school year. So kudos to that department and staying on top of everything with as much technology as we had to utilize for last year. So I appreciate them. In student nutrition, again, we're preparing for the start of the school year, and just like in student nutrition, student transportation, and in buildings and grounds, they'll be hosting their back-to-school meetings with their staffs. They'll be going over expectations from Dr. Cave, expectations from them, going over any procedures, trainings, and things that they'll have to be prepared for with the upcoming school year. So those departments are working hard and getting ready for that. And in student transportation, just as a reminder, we still need drivers. Mr. Bradley, I think, daily reminds me we need drivers. So we want to say a plea again. Anybody out in the public looking for employment, please look us up. We would love to have you drive bus. If there's a person out there, retiree, a perfect opportunity to pick up some extra income and work with a great organization and a great person in Mr. Bradley and his staff. So we want to send a shout out to anybody who's looking. I also want to say kudos to student transportation with their summer routes. Everything was down to the wire, getting those prepared, and his staff worked extremely hard. There were some new people in his department who had to learn on the fly on some things, and did a great job in getting those routes. They had 21 routes for the summer, and I didn't get one single phone call of a concern or an issue that has come about through summer transportation. So kudos to them. Mr. Bowman, that concludes my operations report unless you have any questions for me.
I do have one question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
When you said Chromebooks, there's like, you said 400 that was not returned? Was there a contract that went along with those? I mean,
They signed an agreement when they picked up the Chromebooks, and we've sent out correspondence. The schools have sent out correspondence pleading and asking for them to return them back to us, and understanding that they're going to get them back again or get a new one when they come back in the fall. So there's no reason for them not to return them back to us. Our bigger, I wouldn't say our bigger concern, but one of the issues that technology share with me too, and we got to probably find a way to stress to our students and to our parents, this is a resource that we're providing to our families to take care of them. And the conditions that some of our Chromebooks are coming back in, the things that we're seeing done to them, I'm not sure intentionally, but just through normal wear and tear, but even some extreme things that we've seen. This is a valuable piece of resource that we're providing to them, and we want them to take care, and we want them to respect it just like they would respect their own equipment. And we're not saying everybody, but we're concerned about that. And you guys have made a commitment to provide new Chromebooks for our students. We want to reiterate to these families that we're providing these to you. Let's take care of them. So yes, ma'am, we had them sign an agreement. They should have been returned, and we'll continue to work on trying to do that. We have the names, and again, Dr. Cave shared that they would not get a new Chromebook once they come back until some kind of agreement's given to us that we would get that item returned or some reason why it wasn't returned.
thank you.
Is the
Yes, ma'am.
expectation, Mr. Warren, that they continue to take home all Chromebooks, the one-to-one? Because before, specifically in New Tech, they had to keep their Chromebooks at the school.
That's one of the items we're discussing with the principals and discussing in our cabinet meeting, trying to make a determination on what we want to do with that. In years past, prior to COVID, we did have New Tech who took them home, and we decided once COVID hit, everybody had to take them home, so we issued them out. In years past, we had them at the elementary school where there were class sets, where they went into classrooms and got them and used them throughout the day. So in our discussions, we're going to talk with the principals and see how they would like to handle that. Our recommendation right now, as it is, would be probably elementary, use class sets, secondary, probably take them home, because they would have more use for them at home in the evenings. But we're going to talk with the principals and talk in our cabinet meeting and make that decision, because Ms. Frank is chomping at the bit to want to know what that expectation is.
Thank you. If you'll just update us on that, but then too, understanding that if secondary does have the ability to take theirs home, that there are more stricter guidelines, and I would support that. I know the board would too, given those numbers that were just presented tonight about those that did not come back to us. I want to make sure that we are giving our students what they need, but the expectations and the commitment from the parents is there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for that commitment, because we will need that. Thank you. We'll do a survey tomorrow with the principals.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradley, I just want to let you know I've been trying to recruit bus drivers for you. I've been trying. I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with Miss Cheryl's mother. She drove bus for us for like 40 years. And when I asked her to come back, I had to duck a frying pan. She asked me if I was crazy, but I'm trying to recruit drivers for you, Mr. Bradley. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Warren? All right, thank you, Mr. Warren.
Bowman.
At this time, Human Resources, Mr. Charles Murdoch.
And this time we'll call on Mr. Cliff Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. Again, Human Resources, and you have my report before you, and also we have it on the screen for you. Just a few things, well, more than that's listed on here that we're doing, but a few things that I wanted to make note to you. We have our new staff orientation that we hold every year. Last year, of course, with COVID, we had to kind of do things a little different, but this year we're kind of going back to our normal new teacher orientation, our new staff orientation. So August 3rd through the 5th. On August the 3rd, we'll be at Colleton County High School that morning at 8:30 in the Performing Arts Center. To kick off, Dr. Cave will do a welcome to our new staff. And then after we do our welcome and some introductions, we'll do a breakout and have them go in and meet with benefits and then meet with technology to pick up any technology items that they need and also any of their password, usernames, and those kind of things. And then they'll also have a separate breakout room that we'll go to that'll have some other information from HR as well as talking about protocols and those kind of things. And then in the afternoon, that'll be all new staff, so any classified and certified. We'll have lunch, and then after lunch, certified staff will then go on a bus tour of the district. We've done this the last few years. It seems to go over very well, and we get a professor from USC Salkehatchie, and I can't remember her name. It's Sarah Miller. Thank you. Dr. Miller and Ryan Pearson, who's a social studies teacher at the high school, is going to be our tour guide. And they're going to take our new staff around just to see how big our county is and make sure they get to see where our various students are coming from throughout the county. And Dr. Cave even said she was going to join and be able to go around and see the county as well. So that'll be day one. And then on day two, we'll be back here in this room, and we'll be doing, talking about with our certified staff, the first days of school, the first week of school, giving them some protocols, giving them some Harry Wong suggestions on classroom expectations, rules, procedures, and just surviving that first week. So we'll be doing that on day two. And then on day three, we're going to allow those staff members then to go to their schools and actually get to meet with their principal and spend a day getting to know all the things that are going on in their school. Because a lot of the stuff that they need to know that day one is at their school. So we want them to spend a day there before everybody gets back into the building to find out all the important stuff that they need to know for their school. So that'll be new staff orientation that we're working on. So I wanted to give you an overview. You're welcome to come that first day, and we're doing the welcome at 8:30. We'll make sure we get you introduced as well in front of our new staff. So we encourage you to be there. And I'll send out more correspondence to Dr. Cave to send out to you guys as well, okay? We're also hosting, as we do every year, a teacher evaluator trainer. This will be an in-house training. The state is sponsoring some training this year, but every time we've had teachers sign up, they've been full. And unfortunately, they haven't offered enough to be able to fulfill what we need. So we'll be offering that again in-house. And we have a couple of trainers in our staff who will be providing that training to those teachers that are recommended by our principals to serve as teacher evaluators for this year and years coming up as well. And then, of course, as I know our new teachers look forward to every year, teacher evaluations. So if we have anybody who's going through any formal type evaluations or in our induction teachers, they have to have an orientation, and I'll be providing that to them as well to go over what expectations they have for their upcoming evaluation for this school year. I also wanted to share with you and try to keep you updated on our teacher vacancies. We still are well short of what we need to be at full capacity with our vacancies. Right now, I can share with you, looking down the list that I provided, we've offered 2 for Bells, so that should be completely full now if they accept, and we'll be offering, bringing them to you for recommendations once we have them signed on. Blackstreet, we're in good shape right now. Keep our fingers crossed. We will be monitoring enrollment numbers. As you're aware, we did close 2 kindergarten classes due to the enrollment, and we're monitoring those numbers closely. And if we're getting over capacity there, we'll need to add back. And we have 7 teachers for kindergarten, and we're right at that 7 teacher capacity right now. So hopefully they'll continue to come. We want them to come. We want to encourage our parents. If you have not enrolled your student, please, we encourage you to do so. We'll make sure we have the staffing available to accommodate you. Our 2 big concerns, as you can see, over half of our vacancies are at our middle school and our high school. Very difficult to find teachers in those areas, and we're continuing to work hard and plug every day. I've got to applaud Ms. Behe and her staff, and also Mr. Cannon and his staff, just trying to beat the bushes to find teachers where we can. And we're also looking at very creative ways to be able to handle these vacancies if we're unable to fill them by day one. A couple of options that we're looking at, of course, is the virtual option that we utilized last year. We got the new vendor that we're also working with to see about what they offer. And so we'll be looking at that, looking at whether we can have any retirees that we might can consider to bring back. They're looking at their master schedule, seeing if there's things that they can squeeze out to maybe do with first semester, not have to have that class until second semester. So we're looking at all options to be creative, just in case we're not able to fill those vacancies. Cottageville, we're still looking for an art teacher. Forest Hills, right now, we're in good shape. Hendersonville, we're looking for a media specialist. Northside, we're staffed. TCTC, we're looking for auto tech. If you know anybody who wants to be an auto tech teacher at TCTC, we need one. We encourage you to let them know to apply for that. And then our related services vacancies, we still have 4 there. So that's just an overview of our vacancies that we have. We'll continue to work hard to get those filled.
You said related services or special services, 4?
4.
For that's special services? And is that, do we know what level?
Speech therapist. Our special ed are combined in here, and that's not special ed teachers. That's somebody like a speech therapist, psychologist, hearing impaired teacher, our vision teacher, and a lead facilitator.
So all those positions typically rotate where needed, correct?
Yes,
so they'll
they'll go where the caseloads are for those students. And we've utilized contracted services for those positions if we need to. That's a last resort. Ms. Barrett doesn't like that word, contracted services, because they're expensive, but it is an option that we can utilize with them.
I want to say, Mr. Warren, I want to commend you for the job that you've done with hiring 35 new employees, especially in this work environment, if you will. And I'm not talking about the district, I'm just talking about how every school district is looking for employees. I commend you. I know it's a struggle. I know it's extremely difficult. That's why I'm happy to see that we're going to be doing a salary study. We're reevaluating our FTEs. I know it's a struggle, but I just want to take this opportunity to tell you I'm proud of how you've done that. Keep up the great work with hiring, because I know when you get in front of these potential employees, sometimes it's kind of difficult, but
thank you.
You've done a marvelous job with hiring 35.
It's a team effort, and I appreciate that, but it's a team effort, and our schools are doing a great job too, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Warren, out of the new hires, the certified staff, do you know how many, just top of your head, how many are induction teachers?
That's a good question, Mr. Jenkins. I asked him to pull that for me today, and I don't have that in front of me, but probably, I would say out of the 35, probably half, around 15 to 20 are induction teachers.
Okay.
But I can bring that, I'll have that for you for the next board meeting, because we have to get that for their evaluations, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. Warren, I have a question or kind of some information I'd like to share or ask about, and that is, I know we provide $2,500 for for a teacher bonus for special areas of need, and that has been sometimes a challenging point for teachers to accept when they have been employed with our district for a long time. And the idea of a retention bonus has been thrown around a couple of times. And I just saw last week that a neighboring school district actually offered a retention bonus. And I'd like to see if our district could begin to look. I know we just passed this upcoming year's budget. But we also have funding that may not be accounted for as far as Esser. This occurred in Marlborough County, and they are similar to our school district in that they are near Florence and Horry, so they sometimes have teachers that flock to other areas. It says the United States Education Grant has been modified to assist our efforts, and they are granting $2,500 retention bonuses to their certified classroom staff. That's a lot of money that they're giving. I don't know what the distinction is for how long those certified teachers are in the classroom, what gives them, like how many years of service qualifies for that retention bonus. But I would like it to be something that we could begin to consider because we have a lot of teachers in our district that have been with us for a long time. And when they see that $2,500 is given as a bonus from other districts to come on, they're kind of left wondering, where's my appreciation? So I know we always say thank you, and we certainly have done that this year with the $1,000 bonus that we gave our teachers. But I think if another district can consider it, I would like us to begin to think that way as well.
We'll take that in consideration, that we can look at it. And again, we've offered those we've shared in the past. It just comes down to the finances. But I will say, just like Mr. Bowman said, we're in a very different world now in trying to recruit, and it's very, very tight. And anything that we can do to have an advantage over somebody else, I'm willing, hoping that we can do that. And I think our teachers would appreciate that. And anything that we can do to keep a teacher here will make things a whole lot better. So if we can find it within our means to do that, I think it would be a great opportunity. But we've got to be creative, and we're going to have to be looking at opportunities to keep people.
Thank you. And I didn't mean to just say certified. I mean, classified staff that also have been employed for the longevity, I think, need to also be considered to be rewarded.
Thank you. We will look at it. There are many districts who do it. So
Thank you, Dr.
we'll
King.
look to see where we can find the funding.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. Any other questions? If not, that concludes my report. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. At this time, Mr. Blakely coming forward.
Again, it's a pleasure to come before you, this time to share the capital projects update. So if you'll go one more page, Darryl. So what I've presented to you tonight is not a list of all the capital projects that you have voted and approved, but the capital projects that I've already started working on. So what you have the name of the school, the project, and the amount of time that I expect the job to be completed. I will.
In front of them, it is. I just want to make sure, I see it up there, but I can't read it from here, so I'm just looking.
Okay.
Does everybody am I overlooking it? You have it in your packets?
No.
Okay. And it's not in board docs. That's okay. No problem. I just want to make sure I was looking at it if it was in front of me. So just know that I can't see. So
We'll
when you're
get
going
you
through that
copies.
list-
We'll get you copies of it.
Okay, gotcha. When you're running through, just making sure that you don't go too fast.
So
We're looking to.
I'm not going to talk about every single project. I'm
Okay.
going to talk about I'm going to highlight the ones that either complete or really close to being completed.
Correct.
So at Bells Elementary School, repainting the gym, we says it's a 60-day timeline. It's going to be quicker than that because he's going to start there on Friday and work through the weekend to get the gym and the corridor door frames repainted. At Blackstreet Early Childhood Center, we ordered a desk and chair for the principal's office, and it's on order, but as everything else is, it's slow getting here, and it won't be here until November. Yeah. At Northside's capital project, I'm pleased to announce that at Northside, we have painting, and it had a 30-day timeline, but the painting is complete. And we saved some money, so we may be doing some extra painting over there, actually. At Northside, office countertops, it says in progress, but it's complete. The guys worked over the weekend and finished that project. At Northside, the awning for the car riders, it says in progress, and at the time I was doing this report, it was in progress, but it was completed yesterday. Okay? Thunderbolt Career and Technology Center, pressure washing and repainting welding lab. That was done. It's complete, 100%. He started to move his equipment back in so that he can get started his welding program. The next page is building and grounds. Pressure washing of the football stadium and bleachers, that is completed. Removing and place existing asphalt and parking lot lines at the middle school, that is in the design phase. Of course, you know we had to get an architect on board so that we can get an engineer on board so that we can do the saw borings to determine exactly what was there so that they can determine how to replace it and what to replace it with properly. Engineering fees and asphalt removal replacement at Colleton County Middle School, that's in design phase also. And repaving of the asphalt drive and parking lot lines and parking lot areas at TCTC is also in the design phase. And every month, I will give you an updated copy of this. Some of these things will come off the list, and some things will be added on the list as I move forward with trying to get these projects done in a timely manner and in a cost-effective manner. Okay?
Design phase, what does that, what comes after design?
After design, it goes out to bid.
Okay.
And that's what the next document will say to you. It'll bid, it'll give you a bid date and time so that you'll know where we are with that. And after bid date, then we have to follow our procurement processes and move forward with getting the work done.
The reason I was asking is that those parking lots, you know, and that's probably going to be a
Christmas break.
Gotcha.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. And I know we need it
Yeah.
extremely bad. That concludes my report at this time, unless you have some questions. Thank you very much.
At this time, thank you, Kenny. And at this time, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank
Excuse
you.
me, Mr. Blakely.
We'll move on to finance, Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This time we'll recognize Ms. Ramona Barrett, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening to the board.
Good evening.
If you think operation is busy, come visit finance. We just closed out our old fiscal year, and we have also opened up our new fiscal year, but we're still working in both years at the same time. The Office of Finance, we've been working closely with the bookkeepers to ensure that all the federal and state grants ending on June 30th has been expended and all transactions for fiscal year has been processed as we're preparing to close out year June 30th, 21. We have until August 15th, 21 in order for us to claim all of those expenses. So that's going to be more revenue that's going to be accrued into last fiscal year. So we have all of that have to be done. And also we have expenses that have to be accrued because we have a 60-day period to accrue expenses in the old year. The finance office is in the process of closing the year and preparing for the audits. Matter of fact, our procurement audit is going to, auditors will be here on August the 3rd to the 6th. Once the accrual process is complete in August, you will have a preliminary fund balance amount, and this may be an increase or a decrease to our fund balance, but we are crossing our fingers for a big increase. Exact numbers will be provided after completion of the audit. Disclaimer, these financial information that I'm giving you before the year-end closeout process, they have not been audited, and they do not include all accruals and adjustment necessary in order to conform to general accepted accounting principles, which is our GAAP. Okay. This is a synopsis of where we are as of June 30th. Our revenue, our local tax revenue has an increase of $602,418. Okay. Indirect costs, which include Esser 1 and Esser 2, we were able to claim for our general fund of Esser 1 $499,096.17 that will be going into our general fund. Esser 2, we were able to claim $591,436.48 that's going into our general fund. And the EFA, of course, with the decline in students, what we budgeted and what we actually received this year, we have a decrease of $1,153,722. But the general fund revenue overall had an increase of $389,064.03. Our expenditures so far as of June 30th, because we still got accruals, we have a decrease of $1,346,367.09. And just a disclaimer, these are financials. They're not. They're done before the year ends, so they're not exact. We won't have any exact numbers until we do our final audit, and they can tell us exactly what our fund balance would be. Last year, we was able to bring in $788,000 into our fund balance, which brought our fund balance up to We brought in $788,966, which brought our fund balance up to $5,314,379. That's what we have in our fund balance as of now. Until we do our audit financial statement, we'll know what we have at the end of the year. Any questions? That's more than 10%, because with general fund expense is 47, that's a little bit more than 10%, which is our, what we have as our policy.
Yes, that's almost like 12%. And you say our EFA, help me understand this EFA number.
The EFA number is the children, you know, what we get for our
Yeah.
students. Yes, we had budgeted because we had a continuing resolution of last year. We were still in our budget from last year. So, of course, we didn't have the same amount of students, so we were down $1 million from what we had with our continuing budget from the previous year.
Help me understand that $1 million. Well, actually, I guess I better say it right since I'm on record, 1.1 million or so.
Right.
That is an indication of a reduction of student enrollment for
For the fiscal year, yes.
For
the
last
135 day, for 135 day. This is based on 135 day that we
Right.
did in April. So that was, what they do is they give us our prior year money at the beginning of the year, and they base it on the prior 135 day, and then at this 135 day, they give us our actual number, which was a decrease than what we had previously of children.
we lost
Again.
$1.1 million.
Well, it really is not that much, because we would have probably budgeted less, but because we had a continuing resolution, we are off 2 years in a row numbers than what we had. You see, we looking at fiscal year 2019. Yes, because we had a continuing resolution for fiscal year 20. So because we had a continuing resolution, we had the same budget, which was
That's
more.
like 2 years.
Yes.
Oh, so that's still,
Yeah.
that's
We're losing
still
children.
almost $600,000 if you average it out per year.
Yes, we're using, from an actual student, we lost from last year to this year was 243 students that we had. So that's all a reduction in our EFA fundings.
I don't know how, and I'm gonna make this very brief. That concerns me greatly. I don't know how Dr. Cave is gonna find out or figure out how that happened. Now, I know everybody's gonna say, well, Mr. Bowman, we had COVID, you know, but I get that. But COVID doesn't factor in for the previous fiscal year,
That's correct.
which we still had a decrease of enrollment.
Right, that is correct, sir.
I don't know how Dr. Cave is gonna figure that out, her and her staff members, but I would love to have some kind of idea of what in the world caused us to lose that many children in, again, not the COVID year, but the year before that. Because you're talking about $600,000, and I understand that the numbers aren't easily formulated, you know, calculated by formula, because EFA funding is different. It's not just simply
Right, it's a
the
weighted
base
average.
student costs and all of that stuff. I get that. But that's still a significant amount of students. And it also, again, I'll ask the board, what can we do with $500,000?
We know what we can do with
I mean,
No, I just said that. I agree. I mean, it's a point well made, and I know that's a continuing concern that we've had, and in the projections that you give.
yeah, that's,
No doubt.
I can't wait to hear that. Or
Yes,
see how we attack that.
Yes, sir. And we're planning on how we will bring the children back. There are a number of reasons, Mr. Bowman, why children leave a school district. One is academic performance. Another one, children leave because their parents leave. They move various places. They also leave because parents find jobs in other school districts. So we have to look at our pay as well, because when we offer a competitive pay, that would allow teachers to come to the district. And when teachers come to the district, they bring their children. Also, we can look at the types of offerings that we provide our students in our schools to make our schools innovative and do something different, which will allow more people to be able to come in. But also, we have to tap into our community so that we are able to work with our city and our county government so that we can attract more businesses to our community, because business brings additional clientele to our community and citizens. So there are many factors why we lose our children.
And Dr. Cave, not to interrupt Mr. Bowman, but as you just stated, we do the job of trying to educate our students, and we're committed to that 100%. This
Yes.
board and its students and their faculty, staff, drivers, all the different workers. And it has been, when I first got onto this board, one of the main things we spoke about is what we have lost over the last 8 years or better as an industry and businesses. And, not blaming anybody, because I'm a part of this
Right.
community, I'm not going anywhere, but we do. Colleton County is a beautiful place.
It is.
It has a lot to offer people that wish to come from elsewhere. But as you just stated, we have to be able to give them something that they're not getting somewhere else, or
Exactly.
make it look more attractive. So, it is a community effort.
It is.
It is not something that any single board member is going to be able to answer. No single teacher, principal, administrator, bus driver, custodian, because the dedication that I see within each of our schools, and don't get to always be there, and I'm sure Dr. K is starting to see it now that she's with us, but I know those that are sitting out there that have been here for years, the dedication that we have, that we have pride in Colleton County.
Yes.
Not just Colleton County School District, the entire county, and that's what is going to make a change for us in Colleton County. If we
Yes.
all get behind each other and make this happen. So
I agree.
losing people is
Yes.
terrible. And I know many family members and many friends that have gone to other counties for that. So we're all in this together.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah,
That's
well
why-
said.
That's why, Tim, I love what you just said. That's why I phrased that statement the way I did. I can't wait to see what Dr. Cave, how her and her staff is going to figure out how that happened, because we're in the business of educating students. And Reverend Jenkins is a former educator. It's an it's an educational problem. And I can't figure it out because I'm not an educator. So I'm gonna look to all of the educators to figure it out and then tell us what we need to do, what we need to approve to try to turn that around. That's why we need to, support those efforts.
Right, and mentioning the community, this is what we're responsible for.
That's right.
Us seven.
That's right.
And everyone sitting here. So for us to make anything else better in Colleton County, we're going to strive to make ourselves better.
That's right.
Which that is the commitment that we're talking about as a whole. And, everything depends on money, but I'll tell you what, parent participation, community participation in what we do, help at home, neighbors helping neighbors, we need to get back to that hometown feel and kind of push that forward even more. We're getting a new start with our new superintendent. We're looking for changes. We're looking for good changes and positive influence and positive directions from each of us. One person can make a difference, but I know that the faculty and staff that we have in Colleton County can make a tremendous more difference if we get all on the same page and work forward, which I know we are. I mean, just kudos to all that has been done for the time that I've been on the board. But we need to look at that and move forward with it.
And
I know
as
we
a
need to look
board-
at this from a realistic point of view, but it's also important to understand and know we can look at surrounding districts over in the Charleston area, don't just what they have that we don't have, but we also need to look at what we have that they don't have. And I think if we can really clamp down on that, and as you said, the collaborative effort to get it done, it can be done. I think the commitment, as Mr. Mabry said, is very important. When we look at that, then we can really move forward and say Colleton County is not going to take a back seat to any district. It doesn't matter how much a tax base they have, we're still going to be the best in the area. And I know we can do it. We've done it in the past, and we can do it again.
And as a board, we present ourselves as a team, that we are together, and we build the trust back for our community.
Yes,
And that's very important.
yes.
All good comments. I appreciate them. Thank you for the unified front presented.
Okay,
I'm
monthly
sorry I
up-
got you off track. I apologize. But that number just struck me. That number just struck me, y'all. I
No,
apologize.
sir, you're good.
Because I know
You're
what
good.
I know what it's germane to, and that's the indication of a lot of things. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm just
I'm
finishing
turning my mic
report.
off. I'm not.
Oh, that's okay. Is it any more questions, or just the regular monthly updates that need to be approved?
Any more questions for Ms. Barrett on the financial update? Okay, Ms. Barrett, could you just
Okay, the monthly revenue and expenditures report. Yeah, I have-
A motion to approve.
I'm sorry, forgive me, I'm sorry, we got caught up in the moment there. All right, we went through each, Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we accept and approve the reports of 901 financial report, 9.02 monthly revenue expenditure report, 9.03 the monthly budget report, and 9.04 capital projects report presented by Ms. Ramona Barrett.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the monthly revenue and expenditures, monthly budget report, and the capital project budget report. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Ms. Barrett, I'll just say, in this, I get lost because finance, money is always a issue with everything you get into. But it's how this board looks at things, and we get caught up in that emotion, because we know we need more, but we know that we are doing all we can with what we have, and we're always going to ask for more. At this time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Dr. Reed on our Esser 2 funds.
Good evening, board. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
We'll have, if you'll direct your attention to the screens, we're going to be providing you some updates on the Esser 2 and a little bit of information on our upcoming Esser 3 funds. Speaking of more, so, as you remember from previous presentations, the district received, next slide please, a little over $10 million for Esser 2 funds, $10,130,558. That was part of the coronavirus relief funds. The Esser 2 funds were awarded under the Congressional Extensive Funds, the CSRSA funds that were awarded in December 2020. We have submitted a plan for spending those funds, and on the next slide, please, this is how the funding categories break down. There are 15 categories that Esser funds can be expended on. Colleton County chose 8 of those categories, and I don't know where are my best glasses here. One is for our sanitation services and supplies, planning and coordination during long-term closures, that's purchasing technology, purchase of our educational technology, and you can see the amounts there corresponding to those areas, provision of mental health services and supports, our summer learning programs, supplemental after-school programs, addressing learning loss among our students, school facility repairs, and then the next slide will go into other activities. But before we go on to that next slide, I just want to kind of give a little brief summary of all of that, those categories. All of those are allowable expenditures for these funds. We'll continue to support the expenditures that we need for regular operations, like Dr. Cave said, in terms of our sanitation supplies, our victory sprayers, and all those things that make our buildings safe for our children and our staff. We saw the need to look at positions that will impact or work with some of those issues that we see as a result of COVID. It's not just germane to Colleton, it's nationwide. We're looking at learning loss. We're looking at social emotional needs. We're looking at families and students impacted by the pandemic. And we, of course, being no different, sought to use some of these funds to get personnel to impact us with those kinds of issues. So you go to the next slide. Fifth, the catch-all category for other activities, we broke that down into some more specific components. We're going to focus on the continuity of services where we're allocating salaries for fringe positions. These include the multi-tiered systems of support coordinator, as well as a dedicated social worker to work with our students in the district. And addressing learning loss for our school, we were going to be updating our school libraries, addressing other learning loss in terms of curriculum, investments, and then to Mrs. Barrett's point, any federal fund we can do indirect cost of, and we're taking 20% of the indirect of this particular grant, and hopefully will help out with some of those shortfalls. Well, not hopefully, it will help with some of those shortfalls in the general fund, and we can do that in terms of these funds. The next slide, please. This funding period ends for Esser 2, September 30th, 2023. And as we go along this road and try to, ameliorate the effects of the pandemic, we will monitor and adjust. We will look at changes. We will look at data. We will look at how our students are responding to some of the interventions that we have, and we will modify the plan. Of note, with Esser 1 and Esser 2 plans, the whole public input is not considered. As I said before, remember, these are under two separate laws, so with these particular plans, those have moved forward from the leadership from the district. However, Esser 3, next slide please, is a little different. Esser 3, we will receive an award of a little over $22,751,793. You can essentially spend the money in Esser 3 in the same categories as Esser 2 and Esser 1, but most specifically, 20% of these funds have to be allocated for learning loss. And we are making those plans in terms of trying to, once again, get the interventions and the strategies we need to kind of adjust for large chunks of our students whom we know have been impacted. Some of the activities we've done to date in order to get this next slide, please, information out. You can go to the next one. On Esser 3 is the safe reopening to schools plan that has been posted. That was posted on our website, although it has been removed because, just like Mr. Duffy said, we are adjusting according to rules and regulations that are coming down, and that's going to impact our plan and make some changes there. We've provided information to our Federal Program Advisory Board and our Federal Programs Managers, and Mr. Gruber has created an email established, which is esser3@colleton.k12.sc.us, where we can receive direct input from our public on suggestions and how they would like to see us spend these funds. We will be staging a methodology for getting public comments, we talked about this earlier, but I can't remember exactly how we decided we were going to do that. And the plan is due on August the 24th, and we plan on having it submitted with as much input as possible. And that's where we are. It's a work in progress. Yes, sir.
Dr. Reed,
Yes, sir.
what is 20% of that?
A little over $4 million.
20%?
20%. A little over $4 million.
And I'm just going to divert back to Ms. Barrett and her report. We asked for money to do things. And granted, we got this money in a position of dire need that the entire country had suffered. But what you just said, it hit me about public input. Okay? For that amount of money, I would expect that our public that's out there watching this, if you have some input, go do that. Get us input. Let us see what it is you're talking about. Because, $4 million is going to give us a chance to do something. And ideas, the professionals are sitting out there. This is the board that makes the decisions for it. But we get the answers and the input from you. And we also want that input from all of our constituents. So, there's a chance for some parent out there that's listening or that's complained about something specific or, whether it be a special need or it be athletics or whatever. that we turn around and we get them involved as well. And this is one of the best opportunities to do that with. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Dr. Reed, I was looking, is there a limitation on social workers, or is that could this be part of this budget for social workers?
It is, yes, sir. It's an allowable use of funds.
And I think that would probably be a very important part when we address, I heard Dr. Cave say there's no such thing as learning loss, but if it addresses that area of concern, I think that would be a viable portion of that.
Yes, sir. And just like Chairman Whitkin indicated about the situation in Marlboro, a lot of districts and states are getting very creative with these funds and using them. Our job is, just like Mr. Bowman was stating and Mrs. Barrett stating, is as we kind of use these funds, they're only with us for a short amount of time. 4 years is going to go by fast. I can't believe I'm in my 6th year. It seems like I just got here. And 4 years will go by fast, and we don't want to create any funding cliffs, no pun intended, cliff, that we will fall off of when we don't have the money to sustain some of the things. So we want to have some high impact actions and some high impact things we can do for a short amount of time.
But you also want something that's going to have an immediate impact, something that's going to really make a difference very quickly.
Yes, sir.
And I would add, it would behoove us to spend this money in 4 years. And for obvious reasons, because administrations might change and money can disappear like that, especially monies like this. So I know we'll have a solid plan together because, we don't want to look up and lose monies that we've not spent thinking that it's, we're going to have a year and a half over the 4 year. They're going to give us, because that, with the state that our country is in, that might not happen. So I'm sure it's going to be used in the way that's most needed and most expeditiously.
Yes, sir.
I know you. I just really made a statement to my colleagues, not really to you, Dr. Reed.
Well, good point. We definitely need to spend it. Dr. Reed, I just want to say that the Esser 2 and Esser 3 breakdown, I appreciate that specificness that you provided to the board tonight. And I just wanted to check to see that with the plan that is due for Esser 3 on August the 24th, that would be right after our August board meeting and start of school time and kind of busy. The public comments and forums that are pending, what are your thoughts on what you will be doing to try to obtain public information or input between now and then?
Right. Dr. Cave will be pretty much deciding how we're going to go about doing that. The first point is having the Esser 3 at colleton.k12.sc.us email. So that email is up and live, so anyone can send an email. That's Esser 3 at colleton.k12.us, wherever the camera is. So yes, but we're starting to get those comments now.
Okay.
We plan to, we do want to have our leadership get together to draft and try to get something at least 2 weeks prior. We don't have to submit it on the 24th. We can submit it sooner as we kind of identify some of those things we want to put in these funds. So yes, ma'am. Okay. So sort of like a 3-week window, we're trying to get something together and get it out by the deadline.
Sounds good. We'll just wait to hear from you guys as to how, other than the email, if there's any other event that you need the board to support or help communicate with anybody, let us know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we do have a couple of other events that we're planning. We're planning for $1, so we're going to do that. So the community is aware that they can email or they can call in if they so desire to provide their feedback. We're also going to allow them or offer for them to come in and make public comments here at board meeting during the public comments time to give their feedback or input on them, how they'd like to offer their recommendation for how we spend Esser 3. We have a meeting planned. I believe it's next week or either the next one. I know we formalized the date.
Yes, the 9th of August.
It's the 9th. So we'll be getting together as leadership to work on our recommendations. So we're working towards planning on the spending.
The board meeting is scheduled just August the 17th.
Yes.
For the regular scheduled board meeting, that if, for public comment.
So we'll have some recommendations for you by that time.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reed.
You're welcome.
Thank you and Ms. Barrett very much for your hard work and dedication.
Moving along, curriculum and instruction, Ms. Simmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Williams, please.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons, and good evening, board members.
Good evening, Ms. Williams.
I know that there was a lengthy discussion concerning our continuous improvement journey, and my presentation basically just gives an outline of some of the things that we are planning in order to improve our district and to improve our academic achievement for the district. So the curriculum and instruction presentation tonight will encompass 3 topics. The first topic is our new kindergarten through 5th grade curriculum and the process we use to select it, along with the professional development plan that will assist our teachers in implementing our curriculum with fidelity. And then the second part of the presentation will focus on the Low Country virtual program, and then information concerning retentions for this school year. So on the very first slide, as a part of our academic recovery plan, and as you remember, I think it was back in May, at the May board meeting, I presented to you our academic recovery plan. Well, the curriculum and instruction department, along with our instructional facilitators, reading coaches, our teachers, and some of our administrators engaged in a curriculum audit. And basically, the purpose of that audit was to review the materials that we currently use and to ensure that the curriculum was aligned so that our students will have opportunities for a more rigorous learning environment. So as you can see on the presentation, some of the skills that we need to make sure that our students are successful at are foundational reading skills, very important, reading comprehension, writing development, speaking and listening development, and language development. All of these are essential skills that our students need in order to be successful readers and writers. So the next slide is a pictorial representation of the process that we use for the audit. So we met with various stakeholders, and I gave you the names of those stakeholders, our teachers, some administrators, coaches, teachers, and also our district's MTSS team. And we gathered information from them concerning different strategies that we needed to embed within our academic recovery plan. And from those meetings, we gathered feedback concerning instructional practices and different things we needed to change. And one of the biggest things that came out of that meeting was that we needed to strengthen Core 1 instruction, that needed to be strengthened. So we looked at the K through 5 materials that we use, and we utilized a rubric from a rubric from Regional Educational Laboratory, and it's a rubric that our State Department has been using as well to evaluate different materials throughout the state. We had assistance from our state's literacy specialists that helped us along with this process as well. So we looked at all of our materials, we rated our materials that we currently use, and then we looked at some different research-based curriculums to choose from, to choose a new curriculum for our students. And we looked at 2 different curriculums. Those 2 curriculums were Fountas and Pinnell classrooms, and we also looked at Open Court. So the next slide basically outlines our choice. And we chose Open Court because it's based on the science of reading. And basically the science of reading gives us information on the cognitive science of how children learn to read. And open court is pretty much designed because it has a long legacy of success. Open court has been around for a long time, for 6 decades. And the delivery of open court is a systematic, explicit, sequential system of teaching and learning. And also it provides that differentiation that our students need, because all of our students learn differently. So this is the choice that we've made for our district, open court. So if you look at this slide, you will see that this is called an instructional emphasis chart. And if you look closely at the chart, you will see that each grade level builds upon the foundation taught in the previous grade level. So if you notice in grades K through 1, that phonics, decoding, and spelling are emphasized. And in this curriculum, every sound and spelling of the English language in grade 1 is taught. And then the focus is for kindergarten through 1st grade to focus on learning to read. And then the focus from 2nd to 5th grade is reading to learn. So they learn to read in kindergarten and 1st grade, and then they read to learn. And basically that's how our assessments, our state assessments that our students take is composed. Students have to be able to read for learning. So as you can see, it's divided into a 3-part lesson format. So the green section is for foundational literacy and word analysis. And then the red section is for comprehension, vocabulary, and inquiry. And the blue section is for daily writing that includes the grammar, the mechanics, the usage, and the penmanship. So this is the curriculum that we've chosen. We're very excited about it. We want to see results, but we know it takes time to see results. We've also put in place a professional development plan that has objectives for us as well. And if you look at this slide, you will see that the intent of our professional development plan is to, first of all, build that district capacity for effective implementation. We want our rollout to be very, very effective. This plan will also help us with supporting our principals. We will have professional development for them as well as our instructional support staff, like our reading coaches and our instructional facilitators. Everyone will be trained. We will develop online lines of communication between home and school. There's a home and school component to this curriculum as well that we will be utilizing. We will have initial teacher training on August 11th. We've set the date, and we're very excited and looking forward to that training on August 11th. We will also have on-site job-embedded coaching. So along with our implementation, we're not just going to do a one and done and it's over. The trainers will be coming into the schools and will be providing training alongside our teachers. They will be doing model lessons and doing different things so that our teachers will have what they need in order to implement this system, this curriculum with fidelity. And then also, the system also has virtual refresher trainings and on-demand trainings as well. We will also invest in extended professional development as well. So what this is we will have trainers come into each of our elementary schools 2 consecutive days per month. And we're still working with the professional development facilitators with Open Court, and we will be working with our principals in order to schedule this professional development at each of our elementary schools. The next slide pretty much talks about that 3-year implementation plan. As I said, it's not a one and done. So in the first year, we will have that initial training for all staff, teachers, administrators that will be utilizing this curriculum. We will have ongoing site visits to schools, and we will also have parent information and support training. In year 2, we will have initial training for teachers that are new to the district. So that's one of the things that I really like about this curriculum and the company. They take into account that, in subsequent years, we're going to need to continue this training because you have new teachers coming aboard, you have new administrators coming aboard. So that second year, they will provide that initial training for those new staff members as well. We will also have refresher trainings as well for those who have already been trained, and we will have ongoing site visits to the school, and we will also have administrative trainings as well. In year 3, we will have some of the trainings that you see listed there for year 1 and year 2, but in year 3, we will focus heavily on train the trainer, because at some point we have to be released and we have to be able to sustain this training for our district and those that are new to our district as well. So that is basically the plan moving forward for our new curriculum for kindergarten through 5th grade and the implementation plan. And before I go to the next slide, I just wanted to ask if you have any questions concerning the curriculum.
I have 2 quick questions on the development of ongoing lines of communication between home and school. Does Open Court provide that type of communication, or do you envision utilizing a dojo or something that you already have?
No, they do.
Okay.
They do. They have a whole system that's dedicated to how we can reach our parents and make sure that our parents are more involved in their children's learning, especially in that literacy piece.
Mm-hmm.
So they provide that for us.
So like a parent login to their website kind of thing?
Well, I know that there are parent letters and forms and different things,
Okay.
newsletters that will be sent home. I'm not sure if there's any type of login that our parents will utilize. Our teachers will log in because this is a virtual program, as well as having those materials, concrete materials as well.
Gotcha. The other question I had was just that this is all part of the academic recovery plan, and it's funded by Esser too? Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
One question.
Yes.
If a student is enrolled in virtual academy, and the parent changed their mind, can the student opt out and come into the school without any problems?
Can they come back into the school without any problem?
Versus, they changed their mind. They already signed up for virtual, and they changed their mind and want to come into the school.
Well, when our parents signed up for the virtual program through Low Country Education Consortium, they had to make a commitment to stay with that program for an entire year. Okay. All right, and that's the next part of the presentation. Our Low Country Education Consortium virtual school enrollment. Just wanted to give you an update on the numbers of students that we have in the program currently enrolled. And as you can see there, for grade 4, we have 7 students enrolled. For grade 5, we have 5 students enrolled. Grade 6, we have 4 students enrolled. Grade 7, 9 students. And grade 8, we have 14 students, making a total of 39 students for the district in grades 4 through 8 that are enrolled in the Low Country virtual program. Just wanted to let you know what the cost for each of those students will be, because as you know, we will keep those students on our roster. Those students will still be our students, but they will be served through Low Country. So the cost for each student is $4,006. And the total cost for all 39 of our students that will be participating is $156,234. Half of this cost has been invoiced. So we've been invoiced already for $78,117. And then the remaining half will be invoiced in October. So this too will be paid with Esser funds as well.
I'm sorry, I said that's where the commitment comes in.
Yes, exactly. Now, there is a possibility, I want you to know, there is a possibility that cost may decrease, but it's based on 2 factors. And those 2 factors are, one, If no additional special education staff is needed for the program, that will drive our costs down. And then 2, there are 25 open seats in the consortium. And if they fill those seats, that will bring our costs down as well.
Are we using any of our local teachers as instructors in this consortium?
From my understanding, I don't think any of our teachers, I think we had one teacher to apply through the consortium, but that teacher had already, resigned her post here with our district. So I think we don't have any of our teachers currently teaching in the consortium.
Okay.
Ms. Williams, you said 25 open seats. Is that for the entire consortium, or is that available for Colleton County?
That's for the entire consortium. So all of the districts that are part of the consortium, they have dibs on those 25 seats.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams, I just wanted to point out, and I know this is obvious, but that the latter grades, the older middle school age students, we have larger numbers from our district. And I just want to be able to try to captivate those, though they have already made a decision to go to Low Country Consortium, but come 9th grade, that will not be an option for them, and we want them to be enrolled. So I hope the effort is ongoing to continue that relationship and encourage them to enroll at Colleton County High School in the 9th grade year.
Yes. At this current moment, the consortium is not offering a program for the high school.
Okay. But we all know what the potential for them to do something else virtually.
Right.
So hopefully that transition occurs, though this is their choice now, for them to eventually come back face-to-face to our district.
Right. And we will target, and I know Dr. Cave has a campaign, and I know that she's going to be targeting those students to come back to us.
I am going to target the students to come back to us. At our consortium meeting that we had the other day, I asked for the list of the students. The Low Country Consortium is not the only place where our students are. We have 139 students who are in another virtual academy. So I've asked for that list of students as well. We're going to search Power School, and I'm going to personally reach out to the families and talk with them about what Colleton County has to offer so that we can get the children back in school.
Dr. Cave,
Yes.
Any more questions?
Okay, I think it's 2 additional slides.
Okay.
Okay, so the next slide is information for you about retentions for the 2020-2021 school year. And so you will see the grade level. You will also see the number of students that were retained, the number of students that are attending summer programs, and you will see the number of students promoted on probation. So at the elementary level, we have 51 students who have been retained. However, 31 of those 51 students are 3rd graders who are in summer reading camp as a part of the Read to Succeed program. So if those 31 students successfully meet the standards and successfully make the score that they need to make on our formative assessment, then they will be promoted to the next grade. So that number will come down from 51 to 20. Okay, I just wanted to note that. And then also you see the number of students. We have 403 elementary students attending summer school, and we have 74 of our elementary students who have been promoted on probation. And then at the middle school level, the numbers there, we have 6 students who are retained. We have 461 students who are attending summer programs, and we have 109 students who have been promoted on probation. And then at the bottom of that slide, we have the high school numbers. So for semester 1, we had 549 students who failed at least 1 or more courses. And semester 2, we had 407 students. And then for the seniors, we have 20 seniors who are now participating in summer credit recovery. And I think they have until August to finish that course work so that they can graduate. So we had a total of, at the high school level, 976 students who were failing at least 1 course. Yes, ma'am.
How much higher than normal?
I'm not sure. I mean, I can, go back and get that figure for you. Yes.
It's just, that was the reason that, I was the one that had asked for this, just trying to better understand what the next school year is going to look like when we had so many students that struggled last year. And so I know you're going to move into that a little bit, so thank you. A quick question about promoted on probation. What does that mean?
Okay, so promoted on probation are those students who've earned passing grades or passing averages in at least 2 of the 4 core content areas. So they can pass 2 and they cannot pass 2, and that's being promoted on probation. However, the 2 courses that they failed, their grade can be no lower than a 55. And this is all in our policy as policy IKE. It's there. Those students who are promoted on probation, and I know you asked this question, they will receive additional help during the school year through, tier 2 interventions that will be offered at our schools in various ways. We have different platforms that our students will be able to utilize, such as Edmentum, as you know. We have Alex Math, Dreambox, different platforms that can be used as well as just receiving those good interventions from teachers. Also, as a part of that policy, the promoted on probation policy, if a student does not improve and fails the same subjects for 2 consecutive years, then that student can be recommended for retention. That doesn't mean they will be retained, but they can be recommended for retention because there are lots of factors that we look at for retention. We have to look at a child's age. When they get to be a certain age, if they're continuously retained, they are they may drop out of school. They're at a high percentage of dropping out of school. So there are many factors that we look at when we talk about retention.
And not to get too specific because, I don't know that much. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of promoted on probation because there is the 2 years that the student has if they have a repeated failed subject matter. So
that's
that
right.
is typically kept at the school level then to watch those 2 years following so that's how it's kind of kept is at
That's
the school
exactly
level.
right.
Okay.
Those students are on, and you said the right word, on watch.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last slide pretty much answers some of the questions I know that you had about those students as far as, what are we doing to help those students? So on that particular slide, you will see what we're doing in summer programs and then our plans for next school year. So many of our students are participating in summer programs, and some of the things that they're getting there is they're getting focused lessons, focusing on those skills, those specific skills that they have deficits in. They're also receiving that direct instruction, that standards-based instruction, focusing on those standards that they need. And then small group instruction. That has been a big practice in our district, and it's a very good practice to place students in smaller groups to differentiate, to get what they need in those small groups based on their levels. And then for the upcoming school year, we will be doing some of those same things that you see there. In addition to, you will see MTSS intensive interventions. So I think Dr. Reed may have mentioned our MTSS system, which is our multi-tiered system of support. And it supports those students with academics, and it supports students with behavior. The behavior portion of MTSS is usually called PBIS, and the academic portion of MTSS is usually called RTI. So those terms are used interchangeably, but basically what MTSS is, it's like a problem-solving platform that schools engage in. They talk about the students' data, they look at where the students are, and then they talk about, what are some good interventions that we can utilize to help the student that's struggling in, maybe they're struggling in cause and effect. maybe they're having issues with multiplication, whatever the issue is, that team looks at it, discusses it, and then figures out what type of intervention that student may need to help them to improve. And that is basically what our instructional focus blocks will be. That's new terminology that Dr. Cave has instructed that we will be utilizing. Focus blocks, and it's primarily additional time that students will have to focus on those skills that they have deficits in. And then you also see on the slide credit recovery. And I know that the high school has utilized credit recovery in the past, but Mr. Cannon and his team have really put some thought into reorganizing how that credit recovery will look. And basically, and it's in our academic recovery plan as well, but the SMART goal for credit recovery states by the end of the first semester of the 2021-2022 school year, 100% of Colleton County High School students in need of credit recovery will have the opportunity to gain at least 2 course credits through an integrated credit recovery course block that's built into the master schedule. So it's a little different from the way they have been doing it in the past. Then students who do not need that credit recovery, they are going to be participating in clubs. And they will have this in a 45-minute credit recovery block of time. Mr. Cannon and his team have really thought out a very good plan to just kind of boost credit recovery and give it some more teeth and to really help our students who are struggling to regain that credit that they need.
So that block will impact all of the students in school. I mean, I understood what you said about those who don't need it, then they will be in clubs.
Right.
The ones who need it will be
In the credit recovery, yes, sir.
So it impacts all the students in the school.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the explanation of the credit recovery. I know that has been something that has been brought to the attention of the board before.
Yes.
And so hearing that explanation was very helpful, especially I think relative to the number of students failing one course, knowing that those are really high numbers.
Yes.
And it sounds like the credit recovery as well as the instructional focus blocks, those are 2 tools that will really be helping those secondary education
Right.
students, right?
Right.
More than some of the other systems that you were describing more for elementary.
Right. And there are other plans in the works as well for our secondary schools as well.
Okay.
And I will be presenting those, I guess, at a later time. But there are other things that we are doing at the secondary level as well.
Promising, and very much appreciate the explanation.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions about our retention.
Yes.
When, on your chart here for school year 2021 retentions, you have elementary. Is that K-5, K-8?
Yes.
K-6?
That's K-5.
That's K-5?
That's K-5.
And out of all of our K-5 students, we only had 20 potential students that are retained?
Well, it's 51,
Right.
but yeah, 31 of them are in summer reading camp because those are 3rd grade students that have to make a certain score on the formative assessment to go on. But then you can see we have 74 students who were promoted on probation. So those students did not pass 2 of the 4 content area classes, but they are going on to the next grade level.
And tell us what the 4 content areas are.
So math, ELA, science, and social studies.
Now, Sharon did a great job asking some questions about a student being promoted on probation. And I think I heard you, and you can correct me obviously if I'm wrong, I think I heard you say that those students that are promoted on probation, we follow them for 2 years in the subject areas in which they failed. And if they continue to fail for
2 consecutive
two
years
consecutive years.
in those same subject areas.
So if we have second grader that is promoted on probation to the third grade, we're going to follow that, let's say that second grader did not do well in ELA. We're going to follow that student's progress in ELA for the third grade as well as the fourth grade.
Yes.
And if they don't do well in the fourth grade, you said we're going to retain them.
They can be recommended for retention
Recommended for retention in what grade?
in the fourth grade. So if it's a second grade student and they are not doing, and they are promoted on probation, and then they go to third grade, they go to fourth grade, but they are still not passing the same subjects that they failed before, they can be recommended for retention.
Okay. I hope this question is rhetorical. Why would we promote them to the fourth grade if they're still not performing to passing level when they're in the third grade?
Right. Great question. So, as I said before, there are lots of factors that we consider when retaining a child. We have to look at, one of the things that we look at is that child's age. You know, if you have a child that's 12 years old and you don't want to retain that child if they're still in elementary school. So you really have to look at that age because those students are more apt to drop out of school later. We also look at whether or not those kids are in special education services. Are they receiving special services? Because if they are, they may be working to their potential. And then we look at the fact if those students are receiving any interventions, like if they're in a pull-out program and going to the reading interventionist and receiving interventions. So, you know, there's lots of factors that go into, we have discussions about these children individually. We look at them individually and talk about what they've received, how they've progressed, and what we're going to offer to them the next year. And then we make those final, retention determinations based on those discussions.
I hear you use the term a lot in that answer, we. Who's we?
So
now before you answer that, yeah, go ahead, answer that, and then because I don't want to ask more than one question on top of that to confuse you with an answer, what you're answering.
Okay.
Who's the we?
So we starts with our schools and our school leadership teams. So all of our schools have MTSS teams, and that's where they look at our children's progress as they're progressing through the standards. And so that's one of the teams.
That school leadership team, typically?
Typically, on a school leadership team, you have your principal, your assistant principal, your school psychologist is usually on that team, your instructional facilitators, reading coach. Sometimes some schools have guidance counselors on their leadership teams as well. Yeah, I think that pretty much consists of that team.
What I find odd about that,
Uh-huh.
I didn't hear you say teacher.
Yes.
Who would know better than the classroom teacher relative to whether a student should be promoted or not? So does this team have the ability to supersede the classroom teacher saying that a student should be retained or not?
So let me back up, Mr. Bowman. Teachers are a part of the MTSS team. I didn't say it, but yes, teachers are a part of the team.
So the student where does the, I guess I should say, request for a student to be retained, where does that start? Who is the originator of that request? And I don't even know if that's applicable. That William should be retained.
So the originator of that request is the teacher.
So if a teacher thinks that William should be retained, why would William be promoted?
There's certain factors that may factor into not retaining William. Because William's age, William may be overaged.
Factors that the teacher would not consider?
Well, we may have, think about it this way. So in fifth grade, we may have, this teacher may have recommended 10 students. Another teacher may have recommended 20 students. We may end up having 50 students who are being recommended for retention. We can't retain all of those students because how are we going to serve all of those students? That's gonna create an imbalance in our grade levels as well. So we have to really look methodically at each one of those students. And if the decision is made to promote that student, then we also have a plan of action or an individualized plan for that student for the next school year. Maybe that child will be placed in more intensive interventions. Maybe that child will be tested to see maybe if they have a learning disability. So there's lots of different factors of why a teacher may recommend a student for retention and then the student is not retained.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. But the thing that concerns me is we live in an environment of academic performance. And if we promote students that are not ready to be promoted to the next grade, that's really not going to help our not only grade level performance, but ultimately our school district performance. I just heard you say in your answer, you know, if we retain those proverbial, theoretically, those theoretical 50 students,
Right.
how are we going to serve them in that next grade? I think the better question would be, how did we serve them in that grade? For we to have 50 students that are being recommended for retention by classroom teachers. Now, I don't know how big of a situation, because I don't want to use the word problem, but I love what Mr. Mabry said earlier. You all are the professionals. I don't know how big a situation this is, but for us to, and maybe I'm being naive. I mean, count it as Mr. Bowman being ignorant. That's fine. My wife is the educator. I'm not. I just don't see how it is fruitful for us as a district to retain students that the classroom teacher is saying needs to be retained. I'm never gonna second guess the educational intellect of our classroom teachers. Now, if that's the case, then we got another problem. Because like I said earlier, it's not about how we're gonna serve them in the next grade. It's really about how did we serve them. And if the classroom teacher is deficient, then that's another problem that we have to address. However, I do sternly believe that if a classroom teacher say a student needs to be retained, I don't think anybody would have the intelligence to overturn that other than that teacher. Now, that might be Cliff might be looking at me saying, William, you crazy. I don't know, but I'm just saying the teacher's there for a reason. To move on. You said that there are factors that are considered by this school leadership team as it relates to the retention of students.
And then let me say this too. Now there's a school team and then there's a district team as well. So when it gets to those final retentions, there's a district team that looks at whether those students will be retained. So that team consists of the school level principal, the instructional support staff, such as the reading coach and the instructional facilitator, along with district level staff as well.
Okay. One of these days, I hope I have the opportunity to talk about at some venue my purpose for running for school board initially. Back when I was in school, and I can say that I'm old enough now, and I can say everybody out there is about my age. If y'all can remember, they had something called social promotion. I don't know if that's still a thing now or not. I have no idea. And I'll, for the sake of time, I'll be very brief. First, we have a teacher that says a student needs to be retained. That information goes to the school leadership team. School leadership team goes through all of this rubric of whatever. And then that decision then now goes to a district leadership team.
Yes, sir. And I'll say this, you know, we are looking at a lot of our processes and procedures, and, you know, that's one that we may need to take a look at, and there may need to be some changes. But I still stand behind the fact that we have to look at each one of these students individually and look at what their issues are individually before we make that decision of promoting that child or retaining that child.
But why do we not see those issues before it gets to the point where we're retaining the student? I mean,
And just to answer that question, one of the things that we do, and we just had this conversation actually with Dr. Cave, traditionally by second semester, by January, you know, those kids that are being recommended for retention are recommended, and we start looking at those kids and start having those discussions. We're changing that, and it's going to be much earlier. I think you said September, October, I think you said
We're going to do
October.
it at the end of the first 9 weeks.
At the end of the first 9 weeks.
So we're going to try, we're,
Excuse me, may I say something?
for lack of a better word of, yes.
I think many of the things that we're discussing tonight have been really a pattern for umpteen years, ever since I was a part of the school district. But
Yes,
at the
sir.
same time, I don't know about decades now, but I do think that the integral part of the classroom teacher is very important. The principal is important. We also got to look at factors. Is it going to help the child
Yes.
more to be retained or to be moved on? Because many times if you retain that child and they exposed to the same environment, you've done nothing much. So you got to look at the whole picture. But the whole picture is that we have to look at it from that perspective that we can't solve all these problems in one night, which is tonight.
Yeah.
So I think
Yes,
I
sir.
understood, and I feel like there are a lot of concerns. One, that the reason that the question was asked was because of the uniqueness that is COVID. And so these are some bigger issues, but also with regards to the promoted on promotion, when we're looking at an additional 300 students that are going to take 2 years to potentially get back on track. And then we see these numbers that are large at the high school that are continuing to fail grades. Those are the 300 from secondary, from the middle and elementary school. You know, I'm concerned that the pattern is starting to create because there was this 1 year, one solid year of COVID. So that was kind of the premise for why it was asked. I think it's unveiling a lot, but, you know, I just want to make sure that the focus is on this year that has been a year that we got to academically recover.
So we, if I may,
Absolutely.
we do have a significant number, I'm very upfront and transparent. We do have a significant number of children who are being promoted to the high school who have not mastered the content. So in order to address that, not only in high school, middle school and elementary school, we need to address it K-12. And the way to address that is we have to put stop gates in along the way. That means we have to build that content knowledge of all of our teachers, not that they're not doing a good job, but we need to make sure that we have effective teaching strategies in place that they can utilize. We have to have effective interventions in place, that the level of accountability has to be in place for the leadership, as well as for the teacher base, as well as for the interventionists, as well as for the reading coaches, everybody who provides incremental progress or incremental support to students along the way so that we can look at the assessment system that we're using, so that we get that informed decision making, so that we know exactly where those gaps are. So we're putting all of those practices and those procedures in place. We're making some changes. We're making some tough decisions about how we're going to move forward with schools and how we're going to upgrade our way of accountability measures so that we don't find ourselves in this place again next year, because our children have fallen behind. As Mr. Jenkins said, I don't believe that there is a learning loss, because I don't believe children can lose information. I think that it's there somewhere. I think that there's a gap of information there, and we have to find a way for them to recapture that information. That's why we accelerate the learning. So with some of the things that we are putting in place, it's our hope. We have many wonderful digital tools in our school district. We have some really great ways to measure progress that our children have made or they have not made. So we have to be able to utilize that information to inform instruction. I think we have what it takes. We just have to hold everybody accountable for moving the children forward, and know that it's a whole school process, not always the children's fault. It's a combination of everybody involved.
Now, if I may finish.
Sure. Yes, we got more questions.
I thought you
Well,
were.
I'm sorry, I was asking some questions. I apologize if somebody might think I'm being rude. After the student is retained, and this is along the lines of what Reverend Jenkins said, you know, this speaks, because I'm so passionate, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because, like I said earlier, I'm a victim of social promotion. The only thing social promotion does is undereducate a student. I'm a victim of undereducation. It's not good. It doesn't do anything for the student.
Right.
But nevertheless, after we've promoted the student on probation, you said that there's a 2-year period of monitoring. Who does that monitoring, and how is that monitoring?
That monitoring is done at the school level. That monitoring is done at the school level.
By who?
By the teacher.
By the teacher that year?
Yeah, the teacher. The team coming together and talking and problem solving. But I mean, I completely understand, what you're saying about the social promotion. But like I said, each child is just uniquely different. Each child is different. But as Dr. Cave so eloquently said, we will be looking at our processes and procedures. And, if we need to make some changes, then we'll do so. Because it's all about the kids and it's all about their success, because we want them to be successful. And, one of the things that she said is we have to start at the foundation. So with implementing, and I know implementing a new curriculum is not going to be the solve our problems for everything, but it's a start. We have to start at our elementary level and making sure that our kids receive that explicit direct instruction in those foundational skills that were on the presentation. And so we start there and we start teaching our kids how to learn to read. Then they read to learn when they get older, and then they won't have the issues that they're having. But it's gonna take time for us to get there.
And this is my last question, I promise.
Okay.
It is, honestly.
Okay.
I tell y'all, I'm passionate about this. This affects a lot of students.
Not a problem.
A lot of children's future. How long has this promoted on probation? How long have we been using that as a practice in this district?
Well, actually, promoted on probation is a policy. So it's under the retention promotion policy. It's policy IKE. So if you look in your board policy manual, it's there. And there is something that needs to be changed in that policy as well, because I think it says the child has to have a passing grade of 70, but as you know now, passing is 60. So I don't know if that was a typo, because later in the policy, as I was reading it, it says 60.
Do you
in
think
another
promoting
spot.
a child, do you think promoting a student on probation is a good thing?
Do I think it's a good thing?
Yeah.
Well, I have to follow board policy. So it's in the policy. It's not me, it's the policy.
I don't like the speed limit on interstates being 70. That's why
Right.
that's why I speed all the time. Y'all hear that? Yes, sir. I said it. I said. I don't like that being a law, but me personally, I don't like it. That's why I asked you. How do you feel about that?
You can agree to disagree.
Yeah, of course. Exactly. Because I mean, we can.
Well,
I think the most important thing about that question is that one size doesn't fit all. It's
Yeah.
going to be different
Everybody wants to answer that for you, Ms. Williams.
for one.
So that's
For
okay.
one person, it may work. For another, it may not.
exactly.
So
And-
until we get the solution that's going to work, we have to use what we got.
And
Right.
again,
So I think it's important that we continue.
I would challenge that to say it doesn't work for any student.
Well, we all have a right to disagree.
Yes, sir. That's right.
I would think that I would like to offer my assistant superintendent a way out so that she wouldn't have to answer that question tonight. Well, thank you. Thank you so very much. I'll come to her defense.
I do like
But-
defense attorneys say
But
disregard
looking
that question.
looking at the policy, I'd like to advance the position that the policy was written last reviewed 7/16. So it is a policy we will be looking at and offering
To revise.
to review that.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I
Very
think,
antiquated.
and I think they're all very good questions and responses from the board. Ms. Williams, the information you presented was very helpful. I just think, again, the premise of how it got started was not just the process, though, again, we've discovered there needs to be some changes to that, but how is it going to impact during this year? So, the concern is the number of promoted under probation.
Right.
If it exceeds what is normal because of COVID, then where do we, we're in the academic recovery phase now, working to reduce those numbers for next year, just making sure we're tracking that and keep us updated.
Right, most definitely.
Ms. Williams, I have a
Yes.
comment, not a question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I was a part of the board, and when it was presented about the new grade levels for passing.
Yes.
And my education from so long ago, 55% of 100, though it's more than half, that's a low bar. And I don't know of a single teacher, administrator, instructor, facilitator, period, that wants a child to walk out of there with a 55 in that classroom. One of the explanations it gives to me for it is so that our students can apply for more grants to go to college. One question we need to ask is how many of our 55% students are actually going to go to college? We have a program called TCTC that puts them in work to make a living. And I know a lot of people that are carpenters or roofers, and they make great money. They work hard. I understand it, but they've come on. They've become entrepreneurs. They've created companies, and I'm talking about 25, 30 years ago. I believe that if we look at this, though it still states in our policy manual it's 70s passing, I was excited to hear that, because we started talking about this, and that number 55, whenever it comes up, it just makes me cringe, because our district's better than that.
Right.
Our teachers are better than that. And again, it's just a comment. I just think as we move forward, and without the pandemic even, forget it, that's happened. That's not in the past. We're still dealing with it. But I know that the commitment from the teachers, as we stated earlier, community-wise, we need to get them to that 70 and above. And if we can do that starting in kindergarten, and of course those aren't the grades there, but if we can get them in kindergarten and first and second grade and third grade, then the fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way up through high school is going to be good. And I'm going to go right back to it again. Who makes the decision? If I missed it, I'm sorry. I didn't hear a parent as a part of this program, but I know that they are. But it's so important after what we have just gone through in this past year that we don't continue to make the same mistakes, or we change those differences that we need, because we need to get our students there.
Right.
Because the only way we're going to encourage our community to grow and expand is it's going to start with a very, very prominent and progressive and professional school district, which we have. We
Right.
just need to show everybody that we have it. And so, you know, when people state, and if I didn't say this, I was going to go home and wake my wife up because I had to tell somebody. I disagree with that low bar for any passing grade, because I know that the students of Colleton County are better than that, and I know our teachers demand better than that.
Right. And thank you, Mr. Mabry. Our uniform grading scale, actually 60 is passing. Anything below 60 is not passing.
And that's state, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Statewide. So, again, as Mr. Bowman said, follow the same procedures everybody else has got. We don't make a difference.
Right.
Colleton County can stand out.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm done.
You're good.
Any additional questions? Or should I not ask that question?
I don't think there's anything else to discuss.
Or should I not ask that question?
I take the fifth.
Though, because if you answer that question, the next time I get on the interstate, I'm gonna get a ticket. You see,
So I'm dropping the mic, right?
I think you already got it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams. And it goes back, all the question was wonderful, the answers were great. It's going to take a village, it's going to take a team for us to get where we need to be, and it's not going to happen overnight. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that we enter into executive session. Upon returning to open session, action may be taken by the board on items discussed during executive session.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion we enter executive session for the purpose of 11.01, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release related to employee employment separation, South Carolina Code 30-4-70A1. For 11.02, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release related to superintendent's contract, South Carolina Code 30-4-70A1. 11.03, discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, or release related to superintendent's goals, South Carolina Code 30-4-70A1. 11.04, discussion of negotiation incident to proposed contractual arrangements and or proposed sale of purchase of property related to the proposal to purchase real property, South Carolina Code 30-4-0770A2, and 11.05, student admittance release requests.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to enter an executive session for items 11.01 through 11.05. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. We enter into executive session. The second part of our meeting will be placed later.
We stay.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion that we enter back into open session.
Madam Chair,
I
I'd like to
make a
make
motion that we enter into open session.
Second.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to enter out of executive session. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you. We're back in open session.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations for professional staff employment for 21-22 school year.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to accept the employment recommendations? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd also like to make a motion that we accept the recommendations for professional staff separation.
Is there any discussion?
No.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept the student release from Colleton County.
And the minutes? And the minutes? The student minutes and release?
I was going to do that separately.
Okay, gotcha. The motion is for student release.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept student admission into Colleton County School District.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for student minutes requests. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Did y'all cover the administrative hires with that first
The
motion?
first motion was the
It covered administrative and professional, regular professional staff?
I didn't do administrative.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation for administration hire for Colleton County School District.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Thank you very much for that. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Before we entertain a motion for adjournment, I want to note that we will be meeting the board of our special called board meeting next Tuesday, July the 27th at 6 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. We stand adjourned. Whoa, did you say?